Prof, you mentioned earlier on how you are friends with some of the well-known political leaders, but then you wrote in page 160, I mean extensively from page 168 to about 180, which you continued somewhere around page 195, 196, about the roles some of these political friends of yours eventually played. And this description was one of disappointments. I felt a sense of betrayal reading through those pages. Specifically, you mentioned the role of the APC party leader, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. You mentioned the role of the APC chairman, comrade, former governor, Adams Oshiomhole. And your descriptions here, I'm not sure they're very happy to read these things here. Very pointed, very direct about the roles they played. You mentioned, you went way back to the role Asiwaju played during the third term debacle, how publicly he opposed, but privately supported, and all those things. I'm sure they will have a lot to say in responding to you here. But this part was very revealing for me. You were really let down, weren't you?
No, I was very, very let down. Very, very let down. Because you see, my engagement in public life in Nigeria has been driven by a very simple thing. Can we find partners to advance the common good? And I crossed every barrier. There's some things that are not in this that probably will come out in the follow-up volume. I can tell you, I went somewhere and a famous journalist, general manager at NTA, said to me, how come you are friends with such people? Everything we are supposed to believe about you should lead us not to expect you to be friendly with such people.
Almost like a contradiction.
Yes, you know, but I have lived deliberately with that apparent contradiction because I have always recognized that to make omelets, you have to break some eggs. And that you look at people and take what is strong about them and work with that thing that is strong in them to advance the good of all. I deliberately did it and live with the consequence of other kinds of perception if that good could be achieved. Now, to have made that kind of strenuous effort continuously and to have built what you thought was a certain degree of friendship that you believe that the least that they could do, I wasn't asking anything extraordinary of them, is to be honest with you. And to see that unravel so much, especially when they're telling you something else consistently, was enormously disappointing for my sense of human nature. Not so much politics, but I mean, is man this bad? Because in all my dealings, I believe first and foremost that man was made good. He can turn one way or the other, but God created man good. The reason we have conscience is because God wanted for all of us to be able to tell good and evil. We can then make a choice to leave what that conscience is saying to us is good and do something, but at least it's in us to know that this is not right.
Yeah.
No, having taken all of that into account and dealing with people and dealing with them in a way that consistently all you've done is give. You've never asked. I mean, let's take the example of Lagos. I met Asiwaju Bola Tinubu in 1998. I mean, he was the one who walked up to me and introduced himself and all of that and talked about my work with what became Nadeco and how they abroad, you know, relied a lot on my view of things to take a bearing. And when he ran and won, I gave completely of my time and everything. In fact, he gave me the name citizen because I would refuse to get paid for what people would take millions for, because it's my citizen's duty. And it became like a joke. And so, not to be able to expect that you can get at least some basic feedback that is honest was enormously disappointing, not for politics, but for the nature of man.
More specifically, Prof, what you wrote in here is, correct me if I'm wrong, what you wrote in here is that the governorship ticket for the APC during the 2018 primaries had already been sort of like given to somebody.
Apparently.
Apparently.
It was clear.
But none of them told you.
Yes, if they could have just told me
and you kept spending money. And
none of them contributed one kobo. That's the amazing thing about it. None of them contributed one kobo.
That's the crux of the matter for you.
That they couldn't say, don't waste your time. Or, we don't intend to have a primary. They would not say it that way, of course. They normally don't. But find some nice way of preventing me from spending this money. In fact, they kept inviting me to meetings. And each meeting meant travel money. So at the point, as I said in the book, I said, was this a deliberate ploy to bankrupt me? Because it didn't make any sense. You're supposed to be my friend. You've fixed something else. Why are you making me come to these meetings every 48 hours or whatever you call one to look at this Delta thing? People kept saying to me, look, Omwagige and Co. tell us this thing, they fix this thing, don't worry. I said, no. Then we'll come to the meeting, and Soshomole will praise me as the only person who has behaved like a
true Democrat.
It was incredible.
Is that the way it plays out in Nigerian politics? It wasn't just about you or Delta States.
Probably wasn't about me.
Across board.
Yes, that's what I found out, was that treachery is a way of life in what they call politics in Nigeria. But you see, what worries me, and I don't think they quite realize it might seem like a nice game. So, okay, they've ended up with this, is that the legitimacy of the political process is every day depreciated by these kinds of games. And ultimately, the legitimacy of the Nigerian state itself is depreciated. I'll give you a simple example. A very high official of an embassy, I'll mention the name for nicety's sake, was speaking shortly after the elections, was chatting just in a cocktail at another ambassador's residence or deputy consul general's residence here in Lagos, and was ridiculing the elections as a joke. And this is one of the most powerful countries in the world, this top embassy official. And somebody, just for credibility's sake, I'll mention that person, Oscar Onyema of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, who was standing beside me talking to this particular high embassy official, said, but your country endorsed the election. He burst into laughter and said, look, you guys want to make a fool of yourself. Who are we to say to you that you have not? So you can imagine how they think of us, the kinds of memos they're sending back home, and how when we show up at the international conference, they will look at us. So that's the point that I think these people don't quite realize, that the legitimacy of the state keeps getting eroded by these kinds of things. Simon Martin Lipset, writes so brilliantly about the idea of legitimacy in the first New Nation. And part of the point about erosion of legitimacy is that it triggers what he calls the politics of power erosion. And eventually one day we're all sitting and the state does not exist because its legitimacy is gone. And you know the consequences of that. The road to Somalia.
Professor Patitio, thank you very much for your time.
It's a great pleasure.
It's been nice having this chat with you.
Glad I got the chance to.
Thank you. There's more of that interview, including a reading coming. You may want to look out for it. Well, I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. I am Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.